We've seen some amazing things, but that, my friends, is something we've never seen.
Brandon Cruz wants advice.
Brandon Cruz wants advice.
Brandon wants advice.
Brandon Cruz wants advice. You just locked yourself into the playoffs.
Nice.
Got it.
Talk with old Brandon Cruz wants advice.
Completely speechless, to say the least.
Man, I am honestly so baffled by that decision. Brandon Cruz wants advice. It's Brandon wants advice.
Green flag in the air. Brandon Cruz wants advice to the front.
It's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at low-end plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports and how this contest operate. If you have any questions related to NASCAR that isn't a stupid question, feel free to send them my way on Twitter at BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything you hear with a grain of salt and use with judgment when making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that is not my problem. Check your sensitive feelings at the door. We're doing a 2-for-1, a twofer, I tell you, a good old twofer, 2-for-1. We're going to be covering the trucks and Xfinity at Atlanta in this video. I am currently recording this at 1:46 a.m. on Friday. My girlfriend's asleep, my puppy's asleep, so if I get through this without waking either of them up, it'll be a miracle. But I want to get this out of the way. I have a busy Friday ahead, and I got time to do the DFS Tavern video, and that's about it. I have a very busy day tomorrow, so I want to get this out of the way quick, and I'm not going to really do a whole lot of rants. I'm going to tackle the Truck Series first. I'm going to talk about the things I expect in that race, then tell you the drivers that I like, and this is more going to be a quote-unquote picks kind of podcast. Now, I'm not giving you 6 drivers who you should put in a lineup. I'm giving you, I think it's 17 at least. I'm giving you what my quote-unquote player pool is right now for both series. I mean, I'm going to mix and match and throw some guys in that I'm probably not going to mention. Not that I'm hiding anything from you, just, you know, when you're making lineups, you end up using guys that you don't think you're going to use, or you hear that certain people have a high ownership or projected ownership, or people keep talking them up, and so I want to pivot off of people. So that's usually what I do. So usually these rundowns or these videos I do are my initial player pool of where I think I'm going to go unless things change. So let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about the Truck Series first, and I'm going to try and get this thing done in around 20 minutes, so it's just going to kind of be a faster one here. So Truck Series at Atlanta, the things that I want to look at, or things that I expect to happen, is this should be a green flag-ish race. Now, what does that mean? Well, Atlanta's typically been a green flag race in the Truck Series, but yet again, we only had 32 cars, or 36 cars through those. Here we have, yet again, 40 trucks going to be in the race. More guys showed up, they just didn't get in, which, if this doesn't show the need to increase the field sizes for the series, I don't know what does. Even if there's not a lot of prize money to go around, these guys are showing up, they want to race. Come on, we need to increase the field for the future years. This just shows that the Truck Series is craving to be bigger. Anyway, so it should be a green flag-ish race. We should have a little bit more caution than what we're used to at Atlanta, but nothing major. The 40 cars at Charlotte, or the 40 trucks at Charlotte, was cleaner than I thought it was going to be. I thought that was going to be a wreck fest, and it was not as bad as I thought. Now, sure, you got, you know, the move and chicane Jesse. I don't know what a brake pedal is. I don't know what a mirror is. A Ouija. However he is, and you know, so, okay, I guess I'm gonna go on story time right here. So when I went to Phoenix this last year, they had a USAA like little tent set up and everything, and they had a little iRacing simulator, and it was a pretty good thing. It was a motion activated rig, and there was a good wheel there, and there was Jesse Ouija there standing next to the sim, telling people how to drive, you know. So like, you get this like 40-year-old dude coming up, you know, he's you know, kind of overweight, wearing like you know, a Chase Elliott shirt, because those guys are just all over the place. They're the new cancer of NASCAR anyway. So he gets down and he's like, you know, racing, and this thing has force feedback and all that, and he just plows the car into the wall in the sim, and Jesse comes over and he's like, well, you know, this is what you gotta do, he's gotta do this and that. And so, I mean, Jesse can talk the talk, you know, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't know how to drive to save his life. Anyway, so there's my rant about him. I've met Jesse, and I didn't want to have a good interaction. I wanted to keep hating this man because he just doesn't know how to drive. And luckily, nothing good came out of that conversation. So I just don't like Jesse Wuji because he's an idiot who seems like he can drive, but he's not. Anyway, let's get back to it. So the Charlotte race was not nearly as wreck-filled as I thought it was going to be. I would imagine the same thing should happen here at Atlanta. So I would focus on people who showed speed at Charlotte, who showed good average runs or a good driver rating or just position ran wherever they were at Charlotte. I would end up trusting that here. Who else? You got to jam in Kyle Busch. I think you got to play him. Kyle Busch is starting up in the front. He should be a dominator pretty easily. He doesn't have to go through the field, and even though he doesn't offer the place differential upside that he has in these previous races, he's only $14,000. We've seen it work, and I'm gonna be trying to get him into every single lineup. Now, usually I go through the whole field at this point and tell you who's sponsored, who's not, who's gonna be good, who's not, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna do that because we are on a little time crunch here, trying to get this done quick. I gotta cover 2 races here, so I'm just gonna tell you my pivots that I like, the fast cars that I like, or let me backtrack, the pivots that I see off of, the fast cars. Let me back up again. So I make a heat map for DFS Tavern for the Cup Series, and I color coordinate each driver based on if they're going to be a potential dominator, if they're a value play or a safe play, if they are a pivot off, like a potential dominator pivot off of whoever's the favorite is, and a fade, who the chalky guys are. I do all this for the DFS Tavern for the Cup Series, and I'm going to break it down here in the Truck Series as if I was going to do the same thing here. So focusing on the fast cars that I like, obviously Kyle Busch, Christian Eckes, Smith, Elliott, Ty Majeski, Lassard, Tanner Gray, and Poole would be the quote-unquote faster guys I would focus on. Tanner Gray, he had a poor finish at Charlotte compared to how he was running, and I think you can easily use Tanner Gray in this situation. $5,200 should be easy to fit in here. The guys that I like from the people I just mentioned, the guys that I really like are going to be Smith, Majeski, and Poole. The people who I think are going to carry ownership in this little tier right here should be Smith, Elliott, Lassard, and Poole. Pivots that I like are Enfinger, Rhodes, Creed, and Jeb Burton. Out of those guys, probably my favorite would be Creed, but these guys are going to be probably the lower owned or at least they're not going to carry as much ownership as the fast cars I just mentioned there. The punts that I like from a glance right now are Little, Davis, Gray Galding, Greenfield, Jennifer Jo Cobb, Spencer Boyd, Rutch, Hill, Fogelman, and Krust, K-R-A-U-S. Can't pronounce his name to save my life. The people that I imagine would carry ownership in this would be Jesse Little, Clay Greenfield, Spencer Boyd, Timmy Hill, and Krust. However you pronounce it. The people that I'm going to focus on right now or have the most interest in out of those guys would be Jennifer Jo Cobb, Angela Ruck. Mainly because I don't think people are going to play those 2 women, and they ran exceptionally well at Charlotte, did way better than what I thought they would do. So I'm perfectly fine playing these drivers here. Let's see, and then the chalkier play. Oh yeah, well, let's see. Yeah, I said who would have ownership. Yeah, I said Little would have ownership, Greenfield would have ownership, Boyd would have ownership, Hill would have ownership, and Cry. Okay, yeah, so those guys are going to have ownership. So the main chalky guys that I see in this field, in the $8 tournament, the chalkiest plays should be Kyle Busch, Brennan Poole, Timmy Hill, Jesse Little, Krause, and Smith, and Greenfield, because he starts so far back. I would imagine those 6 or 7 guys should carry the most amount of ownership, and you should try and pivot off of those fellers to whoever you like to try and gain an edge or at least a lower position. So, like, for example, Corbin Foster should be cheaper. Gray Galding should, or not cheaper, but he should come in lower ownership. Gray Galding should come in at a lower ownership. Austin Wayne Self, I imagine no one's going to play him. He could be a guy that you hop onto. Ryan Truex a bit too expensive, but I like him. I don't mind him. I think that is a fine play. And then moving on to the guys that I like. This is my quote-unquote driver pool, or the cars that I have the most interest in right now. It'd be Kyle Busch, Sheldon Creed, Smith, Majeski, Cobb, Ruck, Lassard, Tanner Gray, Davis Hill, Cross, Smith, oh, I already said Smith, Enfinger, and Brennan Poole. Those would be the people I'm going to focus on the most, and those will probably be the guys that I use in a vast majority of my lineups. So usually in each lineup, I'll probably have 4 of these guys in it. Now, whether it's the same people or a different core port lineup, that usually varies on how many I make, what the contest is, but those are the guys that I'm going to have in my main player pool. And that pretty much covers the truck series. I'm going to move on to the Xfinity series here, and yet again, just kind of rapid fire here. And before I move on to that, be sure to go to racefortheprize.com to get the fancy NASCAR spreadsheet that I'm using, and that you should be using too if you want detailed information on these drivers, driver ratings, history, an idea of what projections they should be at, pages that have history of where these guys finished, of their track history, previous practice times, everything that you need in one place. Go to racefortheprize.com, use the sheet that I'm using to help me make my decisions, to help me make this podcast, and it's, I forgot, I think it's $20, $25, $30. I could be wrong. I haven't checked for June. I'm making this at 2 a.m., so I'm kind of tired. But go to racefortheprize.com and you can see the price that Pierce is offering for this month's sheets. And let's get back into the Xfinity Series notes here. Now, this is the more fun series to watch. I think it has the best racing. I mean, it's corrupt as hell with what's his face, Rick Ware, owning pretty much like every car in the series at the lower tier of the Cup Series. But this is the best package and the most fun to watch. Let's see. Looking at Bristol, you can look at the cars that got killed at Bristol, or the people who had their lineups killed with all the wrecks, like I did last week. Every lineup I had one dude either wreck or like I either had I had someone who wrecked, or I had Mason Massey who couldn't fire at the start of the race. It was unbelievable. That hardly ever happens, to where I lose every lineup in like the first 5 laps. That's just frustrating. Anyway, but you can look at Bristol. Look at some of the guys look at the people who carried ownership that were destroyed at Bristol. So, for example, Michael Annett, I know he was like at 12% or 15%, somewhere around there. Austin Cindric, people that got torn up in the race there. I would imagine that people are going to try and steer away from those guys. And if people are just looking at spreadsheets or whatnot, didn't watch the race, didn't see what happened or anything, you're going to look at, oh, I'm on the wrong sheet. You're going to look at like Austin Cindric, and you're going to be like, what? He finished 33rd at Bristol. Well, it's going to mess up my stat sheet. It's going to bring him down or whatnot. So you might want to try and look at these guys as a bounce back spot. They burned a lot of people last week. Typically, especially the casuals, don't like going back to someone who's burned them, so you could possibly look at that angle as well. Allgaier, let's see, man, what the heck, Allgaier? Like, I know you had bad luck. You just pulled an Allgaier, but why did you yank it down to the inside of the track? You put that stupid car in the outside wall and hold it there. You didn't have to destroy the car. Yeah, sure, you wouldn't have won the race, but you could have salvaged like a top 10. I don't know, Allgaier. That was so stupid. What else? You can't yank the car down out of frustration, dude. That's dumb. The way that I'm gonna look at this Xfinity Series race and lineup construction is probably using 2 to 3 $6,000 drivers, and then trying to pay up for at least 2,000, or at least paying up for 2 9,000 drivers, and just using whatever you have left to fill in whoever you want after that. So yet again, 2 to 3 $6,000 drivers, or low 7,000s, and then using at least 2 9,000 or more drivers. And I think you can very easily make a lineup like that. I think you can very easily use whoever you want. The pricing allows a lot of different paths. I mean, there's chalk here and there, but you can get off the chalk pretty easily. And this is my advice: fade Allmendinger. I don't want to play Allmendinger. I think people are going to see him starting 30th and just stack him in there. He should be heavily owned, and I just don't see it. I don't think he's going to lead laps. I don't think he's going to win. He doesn't have the car that... He's not like a Kyle Busch in here. He should finish, 8th or something, but just using place differential, I don't like that. And I would just rather right now just focus on getting off that ownership. So I will happily fade AJ Allmendinger. The fast guys that I like and that I want to target are Noah Gragson, Allgaier, Justin Haley, Cindric, Brown, and Moffitt. The people that I'm going to focus on the most out of these guys are going to be Gragson, Haley, and Brown. Brown has had very good performances lately. Starting 10th, $6,800 shouldn't kill you. He should easily, I think he'll get a top 10. And top 10, $6,800, what is that here? Let's say he finishes 9th. Let's see, he gets 35 points for 9 plus 1. That'd be 36 points at 6,800. Not horrible, okay? Not terrible. Not the best. We want to do better, but I don't think that's going to kill you. And I don't think he'll have a whole lot of ownership on him. So I don't mind Brandon Brown. He's got a top 10 car, doing way better this year, showing up to the races. I mean, he should be $7,300, I think. I think we're getting him at a discount. I would look at Brandon Brown from that. The people that I think are going to carry ownership from these guys would be Gragson and Haley the most. The pivots off of those guys that I would focus on would be Allgaier again, because you either got to choose if you want Allgaier or not. Pierce brought up a good point in his podcast you should go listen to as well. Of that, typically Allgaier comes down to, do you think his bad luck is going to continue or not? That's where I've been hesitant to play him. I've talked to him about that, to where, you know, Allgaier is he's a decent race car driver. He has like the second best car in the field. He technically has probably the best car, but he just doesn't close it out. I mean, he needs the entire field to wreck for him to win a race, or for stuff to go his way. He just seems to have horrible luck. Let's see, last year he won at Phoenix in the fall. I'm just giving this for an example. So last year, Atlanta, he finished 3rd. Richmond, he finished 3rd. Dover, he finished 2nd. Charlotte, he finished 2nd. Iowa finished 3rd. New Hampshire finished 3rd. Indy finished 2nd. Dover finished 2nd, and then he won at Phoenix. I mean, that's a lot of second place finishes. I mean, he's a great guy, but he just doesn't seal the deal. That's why I'd kind of be hesitant on playing him, unless you think he's going to lead a lot of apps. But I think Gregson's probably going to do that. So either way, that's a pivot. You got to choose what you want to do with Allgaier there. Other pivots are Burton, Herbst, Briscoe, and Annett. I'm going to focus on Annett out of these guys. I like Michael Annett starting. Where is he even starting at? Dude, I'm going blind. Good Lord, he's starting 22nd. $8,700. I'm not sure how people are going to respond to him. Starting 22nd should be a lock play. If he was starting there last year, you should have played him, but I think he should have been played at Bristol. I think he was a good play at Bristol. Obviously, hindsight is always 20/20. And that was a terrible play, but he came in at I was either 12 or 16% ownership, which I'm perfectly fine with. People just, for whatever reason, don't play Michael Annett. I'm perfectly fine going back to him in this situation. The value guys that I would look at: Timmy Hill, Snyder, Macy, Alfredo, BJ McLeod, Josh Williams, and Garrett Smithley. Those would be, or not value. I mean, Josh Williams isn't value, but I think you're getting him at a steal at $8,500. He should be closer. I know, Brandon, you're crazy. Josh Williams at $8,500. Look, he's outperforming a lot of people. Starting 23rd, he should finish 13th, 14th, somewhere around there. I don't mind paying that. He should do well. I think something's going to happen, just because it's the Xfinity Series. The weird stuff always happens. I think Josh Williams could be a great pivot off people, and I don't mind his price. From the guys I just mentioned, the people I think are going to carry ownership would be Timmy Hill, Matt Snyder, and Anthony Alfredo. People I'm going to focus on here would probably be BJ McLeod, Mason Massey, Snyder, and Hill. Now, Mason Massey, like I said, he did not start the race at Bristol last weekend. So people are going to look and see like, oh, well, he finished, where did he finish at? He finished 30th at Bristol. Oh, man, what a terrible play. Well, these guys worked on this car for like 200 laps, and they finally got out. He made up 10 positions. That's the first time I've ever seen a BJ McLeod car or a he's with BJ McLeod, right? He's in 99. Yeah, that's the first ever time I've seen a BJ McLeod car not start. I mean, that was just a bad time. I don't know if it's this is a bad thing about not having practice, because usually they would have caught this in practice, or they would have figured it out. I'm not saying they didn't start it in the garage, but something like this is usually you're able to find it out before you go to the race. Anyway, that dedication that they showed, you know, we're going to sit here, we're going to fix this car, we're going to go out and try and pass people. I like to see that $5,800 starting 25th. Not a lot of people are going to be on Mason Massey. I don't mind him at all. Like I said, Hill and Snyder, they're going to carry a lot of ownership, but they should be a lock. I'm going to keep on saying lock just because, you know, I like doing that and pissing people off. But Matt Snyder, started 35th, should easily do well. And is he, I think he's in, yeah, he's in a 93 car. I'm perfectly fine with that. Don't mind it at all. Actually, let me just make sure he's sponsored right fast. I haven't checked to see the sponsors yet, because I'll do that tomorrow. Let me see Matt Snyder tomorrow. He should be talking about, he's talking about Nashville. He is RSS Racing. Hold on a minute, I gotta type. Okay, I'm back. Let me look. Yeah, he's gonna carry the Louisiana hot sauce paint scheme. I love that. I mean, that's a badass looking car. But anyway, Matt Snyder should be a lock there. Tommy Joe Martins, he should carry ownership. Now, he has had bad luck as well. I don't mind the Tommy Joe Martins play. I don't mind the Ronnie Bassett play. Joe Graff Jr. might be forgotten in this. Joe Nemechek has been doing extremely well in the Mike Harmon car. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, because he was wrecked last weekend. He was caught up in that accident. I don't know what they're going to do. $6,000 for Joe Nemechek at a low ownership. Don't mind him at all. Going back, Garrett Smithley, $5,400. I don't mind him at all. He should be very easily to fit in with any lineup that you're working with. I see no issue there. He's driving the number 7. Look, I don't see a real issue there. Let me see right fast. That's probably the best car he's been in a long time. Starting, where is he starting in? Garrett Smithley starting 22nd. People should maybe be afraid of him starting there. His only race this year was Charlotte, where he finished 31st. But I forgot what happened there. But he should have ran better. I don't mind Garrett Smithley at all. And then going over the guys that I like in general, my quote-unquote player pool or whatnot, Gregson, Haley, Brown, Cedric, Moffitt, Annette, Hill, Snyder, Massey, BJ, Williams, and Smithley, with other guys probably thrown in as well. But thank you guys for listening. Got this in and out pretty quick, 23 minutes, not too shabby there. Let me know what you think of this format. If you've been listening for a while, you know how I normally do it. It's kind of a hybrid, because there's 2 races on Saturday, and I don't want one video stealing ownership from another one or stealing viewership from another one, so I figured I'd just do it here. Just let me know what you guys think of this, and thank you for the feedback, thank you for listening, and we'll talk later. Peace out.